My daughter-in-law told me I wasn't invited and that I should help serve food at my own son's wedding. That was the moment I realized something was terribly wrong. You don't raise a child for 28 years. You don't wipe his tears, pack his lunches, sew the buttons on his shirts for school. You don't stay up with him through breakups and college exams, just to end up standing in the kitchen, holding a stack of plates, listening to laughter you aren't allowed to be part of. But that's exactly where I found myself, in the back kitchen of a decorated banquet hall, while my only son stood at the altar, taking vows I could barely see, promising forever to a woman who had just told me, "It's better if you stay in the kitchen. You make the food people like, remember? You'll be more useful there." I remember staring at her, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Her voice was sweet, painfully sweet, the kind of sweetness people use when they're hiding something sharp behind it. I didn't fight. Not then. Not there. Because my son, my Michael, was standing just a few yards away, adjusting his tie, smiling nervously, looking like every dream I once had for him. And a mother will endure almost anything not to ruin her child's happiness. So I nodded. I walked to that kitchen. I picked up a tray, and I watched my son's wedding through the crack of a swinging kitchen door, like a stranger peeking into someone else's life. What I didn't know, what none of them knew, was that hiding me in that kitchen would be the very thing that exposed the truth. A truth that destroyed their perfect day and saved my son from the biggest mistake of his life. Before all this, before the wedding, before the whispers, before the humiliation, my life was simple, quiet, predictable. I lived in a small yellow house on Maple Street, a house that smelled like fresh coffee in the mornings and lavender in the evenings. A house where my son grew up, taking his first steps in the hallway, learning to ride a bike in the driveway, bringing home frogs from the creek behind the house. Michael was a good son. Not perfect, no one is, but good. Thoughtful. Soft-spoken. A boy who never forgot my birthday and always hugged me whenever he visited home. When he brought home his girlfriend, Alicia, I wanted to like her. I really did. She was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that made people stop mid-sentence. But there was a sharpness to her, a coldness behind the smile. The way she looked at me, as if she were evaluating me, not meeting me. Still, I tried. Because that's what mothers do when their sons fall in love. We had dinners. We went as small family gatherings. I tried asking her about her job, her family, her dreams. She answered politely, but never warmly. Michael, blinded by love, didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't want to. Over time, things shifted. Little things. He called less often. Visits became shorter. His tone became rushed, like he always needed to be somewhere else, or with someone else. I told myself this was normal. Children grow up. Children fall in love. Children drift. But a mother feels things, even in the silence. Still, I stayed quiet. Because if Michael was happy, then I could accept being a smaller part of his life. But everything changed 4 months before the wedding. Alicia invited me to her bridal shower, or so I thought. But when I arrived, all the other women stared at me strangely. Oh, one of them said, "I thought it was just bridesmaids." Alicia quickly stepped in, smiling too brightly. She insisted on coming. You know how mothers are. Before I could respond, she took me aside, placed a hand on my arm, and said, "You don't have to come to events like this." Really? It's okay. Events like this. As if I was some outsider intruding on their world. I brushed it off. I reminded myself it was her day, her stress, her style. But the first real clue arrived 2 weeks before the wedding. Michael came over looking exhausted, eyes tired, hands fidgety. "Mom," he said softly, "Alicia wants the wedding to be a certain way. Very private. Very curated. She's thinking maybe just immediate family in the front, and, well, she has some ideas about where people should sit." I asked him gently, "And where does she want me to sit?" He hesitated. "Too long." "Well, we're still finalizing things." But I already knew. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in the air, like the heaviness before a storm. But nothing prepared me for what she said on the wedding morning. The morning of the wedding, I woke before sunrise. I couldn't sleep. Something inside me felt unsettled. The kind of feeling you get when a door is slightly open in the middle of the night and you're not sure whether it was the wind or something else. I made myself tea, sat by the window, and tried to calm the tremor in my chest. This was supposed to be a happy day. My son's day. The day a mother dreams of, watching him step into building a new family, a new life. Around 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from Alicia. A short one. Please arrive at the venue by 1 p.m. Use the back entrance. I stared at the screen, confused. Back entrance? Maybe it was for logistics. Maybe the front would be crowded. Maybe it actually made sense. I tried to justify it because mothers do that. We soften the harsh edges of other people's choices. But then another message came in almost immediately, where something simple. Neutral. No bright colors. Simple. Neutral. As if I were a tablecloth. No, good morning. No, how are you feeling today? Just directives, like someone assigning roles to staff. Something inside me tightened. Still, I kept my composure. I chose a soft gray dress, elegant, but not flashy, and pulled my hair into a neat bun. Before leaving, I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked tired. Not from age, but from trying too hard to be small, to be non-intrusive, to not take up space in my own son's life. But love makes you do strange things. At 1 p.m. sharp, I arrived at the venue, a beautiful hall draped in white and gold. A place meant for joy. And yet, I wasn't allowed to walk through the front. A young event staff member pointed me toward the loading dock area. Mother of the groom, he asked gently. I nodded. He hesitated. They told me to bring you to the kitchen. The kitchen? I repeated, surprised. Yes, they said you'd know. No, I did not know. But I followed him anyway. He led me through a maze of hallways, past clattering carts and the smell of rosemary chicken. People rushed around preparing trays and garnishes. It was chaos, the heart of the behind-the-scenes world. Finally, he stopped at a swinging double door. Inside, the heat of the ovens and the noise of staff filled the air. It felt nothing like a wedding space. This is where they want you, he said quietly. I blinked. Want me for what? He pointed toward a counter stacked with trays. They said you'd be helping the caterers serve. Serve? Serve? My chest felt tight. Are you sure? I asked. I'm the groom's mother. He froze. His eyes widened. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I was just following instructions. Of course he was. He was only doing his job. But someone else was doing theirs too, and their job was to hide me. Before I could say anything else, I heard her voice. Alicia. She walked in, all silk and sparkles, makeup flawless, hair dripping in expensive pins. A bride should look radiant. But hers was a sharp radiance, all edge, no warmth. Oh good, you're here, she said, barely glancing at me. Can you help with the hors d'oeuvres? The staff is short today. I stared at her. Alicia, I said softly, you want me to work at my son's wedding? She smiled, the same overly sweet smile she always used when she wanted something. I'm not asking you to work, she said. I'm asking you to help make today smooth. You're good with people. And, well, it's better if you're in here. Better. I whispered. Better for who? A tiny thing flickered in her eyes, annoyance. The kind people get when they lose control for a split second. It's just, family photos are very curated, she said quickly. And we want a modern look, not, she didn't finish the sentence. But she didn't have to. Not what? I asked. She exhaled sharply. Can we not do this today? Please, just stay here. It's easier. Easier. That one word broke something in me. Not loudly. Just a small, precise crack. Still, I nodded. For Michael. I swallowed the hurt, straightened my shoulders, and stepped aside as she flipped her veil and walked out. The kitchen door swung shut behind her with a soft thud. But from where I stood, through the narrow glimpse between the swinging doors, I could see the aisle forming, guests settling in, musicians readying their instruments, and my son, my beautiful boy, standing at the altar. I wasn't invited, but I could see him, and that would have been pain enough. But then, the truth began to leak into that kitchen. Quietly. Accidentally. and with enough force to shatter the day she had so carefully planned. It started with a whisper. Two caterers speaking behind the pastry table, voices low but not low enough. "I can't believe she did that," one said. "I know," the other replied. "Hiding the groom's mother? That's cold." I froze. They weren't talking about any groom's mother. They were talking about me. And they weren't done. Yeah, but if the groom finds out what she did, this whole wedding could blow up. My heart started pounding. What she did? What was worse than hiding me? I took a step closer, as if pulled by gravity. And that was when I heard the sentence that made my blood run cold. She switched the envelopes. The groom thinks his mother refused to attend, but it was the bride who intercepted the invitation reply. I stopped breathing. She lied to my son. She didn't just hide me. She made him believe I willingly abandoned his wedding. The room spun slightly. And then someone said something even worse. Imagine if he knew she told her family his mother was too dramatic and not presentable enough for photos. My hands trembled. They kept talking. And the next thing they said was the moment I stopped being silent. I stood behind a stack of silver chafing dishes, listening, every word burning hotter than the ovens around me. She really told him, one caterer whispered, that his mother didn't want to come? Who does that? The other shook her head. I heard she even cried to him about it. Said she was heartbroken his mom didn't support the marriage. My knees weakened. So that was why Michael hadn't asked when I told him I never received an invitation. That was why he looked so resigned when he mentioned the seating changes. My son believed I didn't want to attend his wedding because she told him so. The caterers continued, unaware of my presence behind the pillar. And the way she kept saying she needed privacy from his family. I guess now we know why. She didn't want them around during the ceremony, especially the mom. Why especially the mom, though? I heard she's hiding something. My heart thudded painfully. Hiding something? Before I could move, the pastry chef, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, stepped toward me carefully. She had noticed me. "Ma'am, you shouldn't hear this," she whispered gently. But her softness broke me even more. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I need to know," I whispered. "Please." She hesitated, then sighed. "I've worked at weddings for 20 years, she said softly. "And that bride, your daughter-in-law, she's the first person I've seen go this far." "Why?" My voice cracked. "Why hide me? Why lie?" She swallowed, compassion filling her expression. "Because she didn't want you in the photos. She told the photographer she wanted a certain aesthetic. She said you wouldn't fit the theme." I felt something inside me collapse. Not because of the insult, but because my son had no idea. "She didn't want the groom's family overshadowing hers," the woman added. Her mother told several people they paid for everything, so they deserved the spotlight. Paid for everything? That wasn't true. Michael told me he and Alicia split the costs. That they were keeping things simple. And then I heard something that chilled me. "Well, at least she hid those messages," a server said. Imagine what the groom would think if he found out she was still texting her ex last week. My breath caught. Her, what? The pastry chef shot the server a warning look. "Don't spread that." But it was too late. My entire body froze. "Wait," I whispered, stepping toward them. "What did you say?" The server's eyes widened. I didn't mean, what did you say?" I repeated, more firmly this time. She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "I only heard it by accident." The bride was in the dressing room. She was arguing with someone on the phone. She said, "I told you not to message me today. He's already suspicious." The pastry chef sighed deeply. "We don't know the context. It might have been nothing." Nothing. My soon-to-be daughter-in-law hid me, lied about me, mocked me, and now she was texting another man on her wedding day? My hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Not with anger. With fear. Fear that my son was walking into a life built on lies, and he had no idea. And then, the door swung open. Alicia stepped inside, veil pinned perfectly, lipstick shiny, eyes blazing with entitlement. "There you are," she said sharply to the staff. "Why aren't the appetizers out? Everything needs to be perfect." When she turned and saw me, irritation flashed in her eyes, quickly replaced with a fake smile. "Oh, You're still here. Good. Can you carry out the soup shots? The photographer is taking family pictures now, but, well, this is really only for immediate family. Immediate. As if I wasn't exactly that. I took a slow breath. Alicia, I said quietly, can we talk? Her smile faltered. Now? Really? It's my wedding day. Yes. Now. She crossed her arms. Fine. Quickly. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Why did you tell Michael I refused to come? Why did you hide my invitation? Her eyes widened, just for a split second, before she masked the reaction. I don't know what you're talking about, she said lightly. Maybe it got lost. These things happen. I stared at her. You intercepted it. You told him I didn't want to attend. She scoffed. That's ridiculous. And you asked them to hide me in the kitchen? I gestured toward the staff. They heard everything. Alicia stiffened. Her voice sharpened. You're making this difficult. I was trying to keep today peaceful. Peaceful? I whispered. By erasing his mother from the ceremony? Her jaw clenched. You don't understand, she hissed. Michael listens to you. Too much. I needed this day to be about us, not you. I stared at her, stunned. Then she added, without shame, and honestly, you don't match the aesthetic of the wedding photos. I'm building a brand. A future. Images matter. Images. Brand. Future. Not love. Not marriage. Not family. Images. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed loudly in her hand. Her eyes flicked to the screen. She turned it slightly, but not before I saw a name. Ethan Yellowheart, she froze. I froze. She quickly flipped the phone over, panic flashing across her face. But I saw it. A man's name. A heart emoji. On her wedding day. Alicia, I said softly, too softly. Who is Ethan? Her face drained of color. It's nothing, she whispered, voice shaking. Don't twist things. Before she could walk away, before she could spin another lie, the kitchen door cracked open, and there, framed by the sliver of light, stood my son, Michael. His tie slightly crooked, his face pale, his eyes filled with confusion. Mom? He whispered. Alicia stiffened. Michael stepped inside slowly, his gaze shifting between us. I came to get you, he said softly. Why? Why are you in the kitchen? Alicia jumped in immediately. She wanted to be here, she blurted out. I didn't speak. Michael looked at her sharply. That makes no sense. Mom, what's going on? I took a slow breath. Then I held out my hand. Michael, I said gently, I need you to hear something. Before I could explain, Alicia's phone buzzed again. This time, Michael heard it. He turned toward the sound, and the phone lit up in her hand. Ethan Yellowheart, are you still going through with it? The room fell silent. Completely silent. Michael's face collapsed. And that was the moment everything broke. For all of us. Michael stared at the glowing phone screen in Alicia's trembling hand. The message burned through the room like wildfire. Ethan Yellowheart, are you still going through with it? No amount of soft lighting, white drapes, or floral arrangements could soften the brutality of those words. Not today. Not in front of the man she was about to marry. Not in front of the mother she had tried so hard to hide. Michael looked at her slowly, painfully, as if his entire body had turned to stone. Alicia, he whispered, what is this? She stammered. Her perfect lipstick began to crack at the edges. It's not what you think, he stepped back. His voice rose not in anger, but in a kind of breaking confusion that only comes from realizing the world you trusted was made of paper. Then what is it? He asked, chest trembling. Who is Ethan? Why is he asking if you're still going through with it? Alicia tried to speak, but her words tangled together. It was just old messages, nothing serious. I told him not to, but Michael wasn't even listening anymore. Not really. He looked at me. Not as a grown man. Not as a groom. But as the boy I once held, the boy who used to come home crying after kids at school teased him, the boy who always believed people were better than they showed. Mom, he whispered, voice cracking, did you know? Did you know any of this? My heart twisted. No, I said quietly. I only heard things today. He swallowed hard. And Why were you in the kitchen? Alicia jumped forward. She insisted no, I said firmly, surprising even myself. No more lies. The kitchen fell silent. Staff froze mid-step. Even the ovens seemed quieter. I looked at my son, really looked at him. His tie crooked from nerves. His fingers shaking. His eyes begging for truth. And I gave it to him. She told the staff to keep me in the kitchen, I said softly. She told them I wasn't allowed in the ceremony. She said I didn't fit the theme of her wedding photos. She told you I refused to come, Michael. She lied to you. Michael's jaw tightened so hard I could see the muscle twitch. Alicia's voice exploded in panic. That's not, she's twisting things. You said I wasn't invited, I replied calmly. You asked me to serve food at my son's wedding. There it was. The truth laid out between us like broken glass. Michael turned to Alicia, eyes wide with disbelief. You told me my mother said she didn't want to come, he whispered. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I begged you to let me call her, he continued, voice cracking. And you told me she didn't want to interfere. You cried, Alicia. Her face drained of color. Michael's next words came from somewhere deep in his chest. Why would you do that? Alicia's mask finally shattered. Because the truth, when it comes, does not come gently. I didn't want her ruining things, she burst out. She always looks so emotional, and I wanted perfect photos, and Michael closed his eyes in utter despair. And what about Ethan? He whispered. Alicia froze again. She didn't have an answer, because there wasn't one she could give. The kitchen doors suddenly swung open and a wedding planner poked her head in. Pictures. They need the bride and groom for, she stopped. Took one look at Michael's face. At Alicia's panic. At my trembling hands. Silence fell like a curtain. I'll come back, the planner whispered, backing out. Alicia reached for Michael, voice desperate. Baby, listen, he stepped away from her so sharply she stumbled. Don't, he said. Don't call me that. Not right now. He ran a hand over his face, breathing unevenly. Were you seeing someone else? He asked, his voice barely more than a wounded exhale. Alicia started crying loud, dramatic, theatrical tears. Not the kind you cry when you're sorry. The kind you cry when you're caught. It was nothing, she sobbed. It was before you and I got serious, and he just can't accept it's over. Then why? Michael said, holding up her phone. Is he texting you today? She covered her face, voice shaking. I made a mistake. You made many mistakes, he replied quietly. There was no shouting, no screaming, just devastation, raw and quiet. Michael turned to me again. Mom, can we step outside? I nodded. As we walked toward the back entrance, leaving Alicia crying behind us, the staff parted to let us through. Someone whispered, poor man. Someone else said, he deserves better, but Michael heard none of it. We stepped outside into the cool afternoon air. The sound of wedding music faint in the distance. Guests laughing, unaware that everything was falling apart behind the scenes. He leaned against the wall, head bowed. Mom, he whispered, voice breaking, what do I do? I placed my hand on his back, rubbing in slow circles, like I used to when he was little. You do what protects your heart, I said softly. And your future. He swallowed hard. Should I call it off? I looked at my son. His trembling lip. His wet eyes. His cracked confidence. And I said the truth no mother wants to say on her child's wedding day. Maybe you should. His shoulders shook once, a single, painful tremor. And then he straightened. I need to tell everyone. He whispered. That was when the doors behind us opened again and someone gasped. It was Alicia's mother. She looked horrified. What is happening? She demanded. Michael turned, exhausted. Ask your daughter, he said quietly. Her mother looked between us, and her expression changed. Not to confusion. Not to anger. To fear. Because she knew. She knew exactly what her daughter had been doing. Alicia's mother stood frozen in the doorway, her hand still gripping the brass handle, eyes darting between Michael's pale face and my trembling hands. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't even look confused. She looked terrified. Alicia, she whispered shakily. What did you do now? That one single word, now, told me everything. Michael steadied himself. Your daughter has been lying to me, he said. Lying for months. Alicia's mother shut her eyes tightly as though bracing for impact. She hid my mother from the wedding, he continued, voice breaking. She told me Mom refused to come. Her mother exhaled a painful-sounding breath. Oh, Alicia, and she's been texting another man, Michael added quietly. That made Alicia's mother flinch, like someone had slapped her. She whispered, not again. Not again? Michael caught it. Again, he repeated sharply. Her mother looked sick. I told her she was ruining her life. I begged her to stop this pattern. I told her if she wasn't ready for marriage, but Michael didn't let her finish. You knew, he said in a low, devastated voice. You knew she was doing this, and you said nothing? Her mother shook her head frantically. No, I tried to talk to her. I tried to warn her. But she said you were safe, and Ethan wasn't. The name hit Michael again like a punch. He leaned forward, hands on his knees, trying to breathe. Alicia stumbled out behind her mother, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Please, she begged him, don't listen to them. Mom is exaggerating. Ethan was just, stop. Michael's voice cracked through the air like lightning. Everyone fell silent. He straightened slowly, painfully, like someone piecing themselves back together mid-collapse. I loved you, he said. I believed everything you ever told me. I even defended you when my friends said you gave them bad vibes. But this? Hiding my mom? Lying about her? Cheating? Manipulating? I can't marry someone who thinks so little of my family. Alicia grabbed his suit sleeve desperately. Michael, please, we can fix this, please, he stepped back. No, he said softly. Not today. Maybe not ever. More guests began flowing out of the hall, confused by the delay in the ceremony. And in just a few seconds, it became a scene. One woman whispered, "What's going on?" A man murmured, "The groom looks upset." Someone else gasped when they saw Alicia crying on the ground. Alicia's mother tried to regain control. Michael, let's take this inside, have a private conversation, no privacy, he said firmly. Not after what she did. People should know why the wedding is stopping. Alicia let out a loud sob. You're humiliating me. Michael's eyes sharpened. You humiliated yourself. The guests murmured louder now. Phones slowly lifted. Whispers grew into a hum of speculation. I stepped forward, touching Michael's arm. Son, you don't have to say more. He shook his head gently. No, Mom. You didn't deserve what she did. You should have been in the front row. You should have walked into that hall with pride. Everyone here should know the truth. Alicia dropped her bouquet. White roses scattered across the pavement like a fallen promise. Her mother covered her mouth, shaking her head angrily. Do you understand what you've done, Alicia? She hissed. Do you have any idea how cruel this was? Not just to him, but to his mother. Alicia cried harder. I didn't think he'd find out like this. Find out what, exactly? Michael asked sharply. That I didn't want your mother in the pictures, she screamed suddenly. She doesn't fit the look I wanted. She'd ruin the aesthetic. I wanted a modern, curated wedding, not, she stopped when she saw Michael's face contort. Not what, he whispered. Not my actual family? Not the woman who raised me. Alicia covered her mouth again, horrified at what she'd said out loud. People gasped around us. Her mother closed her eyes and said, You foolish, foolish girl. Michael exhaled shakily. I can forgive mistakes, he said, voice trembling. But cruelty? Disrespect? Hiding my mother like she was an embarrassment. He shook his head. No, I won't tie myself to someone who would treat her that way. He turned to me. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have known something was wrong. I'm so sorry you went through this alone. Tears finally spilled down my cheeks. But they weren't tears of humiliation anymore. They were tears of relief. I placed my hand on his cheek. You are not responsible for her choices, I whispered. I'm proud of you for seeing the truth. He pulled me into a hug, a tight, shaking hug, the kind only a broken-hearted son gives his mother. And that was when the wedding organizer walked out, voice trembling. Everyone, the groom has made a decision. She swallowed. The wedding is postponed. Alicia let out a sound that wasn't quite a cry, more like a scream muffled by disbelief. Her mother didn't comfort her. She just turned away and walked toward the car. The guests slowly drifted back inside, whispering, unsure where to stand or what to say. But Michael stayed still, breathing shallowly, gripping my hand like an anchor. His voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "Mom, take me home." And I did. Michael didn't speak during the entire car ride home. He sat in the passenger seat, shoulders slumped, fingers interlaced so tightly his knuckles turned white. His breathing was slow, deliberate, like he was holding himself together with every inhale. Outside, the world went on, kids riding bikes, sprinklers watering lawns, a dog barking in the distance, as if my son's life hadn't just been split clean down the middle. When we reached the house, he didn't go inside right away. He sat on the front steps, elbows on his knees, staring at the crack in the concrete as if it held the answer to everything he'd ever questioned. I didn't push him. Mothers learn early when to speak and when to simply sit nearby. Finally, his voice came, quiet, exhausted. "Mom, was I blind?" I sat beside him, letting the cool evening breeze settle between us. "No," I whispered. "You were in love. Love doesn't make you blind. It just makes you hopeful." He nodded slowly, tears gathering but not falling. I wanted so badly for this to work. I wanted a family. A future. I thought she loved me. She loved an idea, I said gently. Not the man you are. And certainly not the family you come from. He exhaled shakily. "It hurts," he admitted, voice cracking. "It really hurts." I placed my hand over his. "Pain isn't a sign you did something wrong," I said softly. "It's a sign you tried." He leaned his head on my shoulder, just like he used to when he was a boy afraid of thunderstorms. And for a while, we sat there in silence. A mother and son, gathering the pieces of a life that narrowly escaped disaster. Over the next few days, the calls started. From friends, from guests, from Alicia's family, from numbers Michael didn't even recognize. Some called out of concern. Some called out of curiosity. Alicia called the most. Crying, begging, promising, explaining, denying, confessing. Her messages flip-flopped between love letters and accusations, a spinning wheel of contradictions. But Michael never picked up. He wanted to heal, to think, to breathe. On the fourth day, Alicia showed up at our door. Her mascara streaks had been replaced by a carefully polished face, but her voice trembled. "Michael, please. I can explain everything." He stood in the doorway, blocking her from stepping inside. "You already did," he said quietly. She shook her head. "No, those messages with Ethan, it wasn't. It doesn't matter," he said. She blinked. "Of course it matters." Michael's voice softened, not with affection, but with clarity. "It doesn't matter," he repeated, "because the worst thing you did wasn't about him. It was about her." He nodded toward me. "You humiliated my mother. You erased her. You lied about her. And you didn't even feel guilty until you got caught." Alicia's joy tightened. I was stressed. Weddings are stressful. "You don't understand." Michael cut her off gently. "No, you don't understand. Marriage isn't a curated aesthetic. It isn't a brand. It isn't a photo shoot. It's a partnership. It's respect. You didn't want a husband. You wanted an accessory." She stared at him, realization slowly creeping across her expression. And then she whispered something I'll never forget. "I thought you wouldn't notice." Michael's face fell. "That," he said softly, "is exactly the problem." He stepped back, closed the door, locked it quietly. Alicia's muffled crying faded down the driveway until there was nothing left but evening crickets and the distant hum of a neighbor's lawnmower. Michael turned to me. His eyes were red, but there was something new in them, something steady. "I don't think I ever really knew her," he said. I touched his arm. "You know yourself," I whispered. "That's enough for now." Weeks passed. Michael began going for morning walks. Started reconnecting with friends he had slowly drifted away from. Took up woodworking again, something he hadn't touched since college. Every evening, we'd sit on the porch and talk. Not about Alicia. Not about the wedding. About life. About plans. About what he wanted for his future, a future built on honesty, warmth, and mutual respect. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he turned to me. "Mom," he said softly, "thank you." "For what?" I asked. "For being patient with me. For standing by me. For telling me the truth even when it hurt." I smiled. "That's what mothers do," I said. "But Michael, you saved yourself. You listened. You walked away from someone who didn't value you." He looked down. "Do you think I'll find someone else? Someone better?" I squeezed his hand. "Better will find you," I said. "Goodness attracts goodness, and kindness returns to the person who gives it." He exhaled deeply. "I hope you're right. I know I am." A few days later, the wedding venue sent Michael a formal notice. The deposit for the wedding was non-refundable due to last-minute cancellation. He sighed, prepared to swallow the loss. But then another email arrived, from the venue manager herself. After hearing what transpired, the message read, "We believe this situation warrants special exception. Your entire deposit has been returned." Michael covered his face and laughed in disbelief, the first genuine laugh I had heard from him since everything fell apart. Sometimes, the universe gives you back what someone else tried to take. When he finally returned to work, people approached him respectfully, not pitying him, not mocking him, but offering support. One coworker said quietly, "You dodged a bullet, man." Michael didn't say much, just nodded. He didn't need validation. He had truth. And truth is the only foundation that lasts. One night, long after everything had settled, I walked past Michael's room and saw him sitting by the window, staring at the moon. "Mom," he called softly. "Yes." He hesitated. "I'm glad you were in the kitchen." My heart stilled. "Why?" "Because if you hadn't been hidden," he whispered, "I never would have seen what she really was." I walked over and kissed the top of his head. "Sometimes," I said softly, "being pushed out of sight puts you in the perfect place to see everything." He smiled. Not a broken smile. A healing one. Life has a strange way of revealing truth at the exact moment we need it most, not a minute earlier, and never a minute too late. I used to think being sent to that kitchen was the greatest humiliation of my life. But now, looking back, I see it differently. Sometimes the room you're pushed into is the room where clarity finally walks in, sits beside you, and whispers the truth you weren't ready to hear. If I had been seated in the front row, if I had smiled for the cameras, if I had stood beside my son as he said his vows, he might have married a woman who never planned to honor him, never intended to honor his family, and never truly loved the man he is. Standing in that kitchen didn't make me smaller. It made the truth louder. And my son? He didn't lose a wedding that day. He saved a lifetime. Healing didn't come all at once. It came in small pieces, quiet walks, honest conversations, and the gentle reminder that love is not supposed to hurt like that. If you've ever been hidden, overlooked, dismissed, or pushed aside, maybe, just maybe, you were being placed exactly where you needed to be to see what was really happening. Now I'll leave you with a question, my friend. If you were me, would you have stayed silent in that kitchen, or would you have walked straight into that ceremony? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, subscribe to Auntie Diaries for more real-life stories every day.